Welcome to the Daily Bitcoin Podcast, where knowledge meets financial freedom. We're here to break down the world of Bitcoin. No fluff, no hype, just real talk about how this digital asset is reshaping the future of money.
Pops up. Okay, so it is live right now. And until I get my, okay, let's see, I'll pin it. And then I'll also go ahead and share it with you.
Perfect. See it.
There we go. Which I'm learning how to, I'm getting so fast. I tell you what, for those of you creating content today, you have got such a massive advantage. So much of this stuff is just show up and record versus everything else that needed to be done.
I love it.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm trying to think where we first met. I think you've been on the show a couple times, but then I met you in Nashville as well. We bumped into one another.
Yeah, I think I met you at a previous Bitcoin conference, and then we bumped into each other again in Nashville, and we're like, "Oh shoot, we got to do this, man." I think we've been talking about it. I don't think I've ever been on, but
yeah,
we've been talking about doing this for a while, and it's good to be on, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. And so you have, well, I guess start by just giving us a little backstory. Where you, maybe even back to the childhood. Where did you come from? Where you are?
Going way back. Oh man, childhood. Grew up in Southern California. Parents were in the defense industry. Had a normal childhood, pretty fun childhood. I was always kind of that rebel kid. Listened to a lot of Rage Against the Machine. Listened to a lot of Tupac, a lot of Eazy-E back in the day. So I've got this kind of just this rebellious nature, a lot of punk rock, right? A lot of Vandals and NoFX. And so I think a lot of that kind of shaped my future self. And then, became an adult, went through college, did that whole shit show, was an econ major, funny enough, right? Got a job out of high school in accounting. And I was like, I can't be an accountant. And then went into technology sales. So I was selling like computer chips and stuff, and then got into software. So had a long career in the technical industry, and then found Bitcoin like around 2016. And
early,
yeah.
Where'd you find that at? Where'd you find Bitcoin at?
So I was trying to buy expensive whiskey online. Trying to buy Pappy Van Winkle whiskey. So some of my old like handles were Pappy G or whatever. So I was always trying to find this Pappy Van Winkle bourbon, and it was really hard to find. And this guy had this really cool website. It looked legit. Like it fooled me. He was out of Canada, and he had like reasonable prices for this bourbon. I was like, well, maybe they get it in Canada and I can just, but he only took Bitcoin. I was like, fuck, this guy only takes Bitcoin. And I heard about it before. I even like poked around on the Silk Road because like I was into some of that stuff that you could buy that was illegal, and but never got into it because I'm like, this is a total honey trap, total Fed trap. I'm like, I can't touch this. Bitcoin, total Fed trap. I remember seeing the Mt. Gox thing. I was always like a Ron Paul guy. Like I was always, over the two-party system, not really enthusiastic about any of the conservative candidates. I lean more conservative, but none of them really ever. I always wrote in Ron Paul. I was like, fuck these guys. Ron Paul in the Fed.
Oh, he was in Nashville. Did you get to see him?
I saw him from the TV, but I was in the Trump thing. So he was like I think he was like right before Trump came on. So
yeah, I
didn't unfortunately run into the legend, but yeah, he's really where a lot of this kind of came from. COVID hit, and all the punk rock guys, all the people that I had previously looked up to turned into a bunch of fucking pussies, man. Right? They were like, oh, you got to comply, man. I'm like, dude, we were like, murder the government like 20 years ago. And now you're like, take the vax, like do all this other crazy stuff. But anyways, I'm jumping around. And so, founded in 2016. Again, I sent this guy, like, I think it was 0.85 Bitcoin. I still have the transaction from Coinbase. Bitcoin was like at like $400-500 at the time, I think. And sent him the Bitcoin, transaction confirmed. I got a receipt. I was like, oh, cool. That was pretty easy. And then the whiskey never showed up. nothing ever happened. So there was like a Facebook support group for like people that got rug pulled by this guy. And we were all like trying to find him. Finally, we got the website shut down, I guess. But I was like, oh, there's something to this Bitcoin thing. Like this guy only took Bitcoin. Like I was able to exchange money for it on the internet. I sent it to him. Like it confirmed. It was just like a new experience for me. And I've been stacking gold, man. I thought I had the world by the balls. I was like, I got a ton of gold, man. Like I'm good, right? Against the Fed or whatever. And then I got real kind of like, well, you know, over learning Bitcoin, got into the shit coins, bought every shit coin you can probably imagine. And then really kind of, you know, when I got rug pulled in like 2017, I was like, wow, all of these kind of like went to zero except this one. So there's something special about Bitcoin. Yeah. And then just like dove in, did the research, but then I was coming from a different mindset too, though, back then in 2017, because I was at the Las Vegas shooting and, you know, 58 people died. It was a terrible experience. My buddy got shot in the leg. He's okay. Thank God. And the, you know, the narrative around that entire, like, you know, event was like a lie. Like they said, this one guy in the freaking room, like shot everybody. And like, I shoot a lot of guns. There was multiple shooters for sure. Like 100% in my mind. Maybe helicopters. I don't know what was going on. Right. But it was like the official story. We never got the official story. And so I started looking online for clues of like, hey, like what is going on with that event? What happened and all this other stuff. So I was always kind of like a conspiracy guy, listening to a lot of Alex Jones. And then I found this anonymous Chan board called QAnon, right? So Q and all this other stuff. And, you know, it was an interesting experience because you had this random person posting these messages on this anonymous board, and then certain things would like come true afterwards. And so you're like, that's just really weird. But a lot of the postings were about, you know, a small group of people that control the financial system. There's pedophiles everywhere and everything else. And so I was like, well, like, and that the military is coming to like basically arrest all these people. And I was like, well, like that sounds good. Like this seems like there's something legitimate to it. But like, if you just arrest everybody and don't fix the money, like these people are just going to come into power in 20, 30 years down the line. It doesn't, like the money is corruptible, you know, ever so often. And so, you know, you can arrest everybody on the planet, but if the bankers don't go down and you don't have a system to replace it with, like you're literally just delaying like what's going to happen in the future. And so I started, sorry.
Basically what you're saying, as long as the printing press is still alive, someone's going to man it and use it for their own.
Absolutely right. I mean, they've been doing that for ages, and if they can just create energy out of thin air and then, you know, give it to their buddies, you know, the incentive structure is all wrong. And so you can't fix the incentive structure without fixing the money. And so I was like, well, like this QAnon thing sounds cool, but like you got to fix the money. And then this Bitcoin thing sounds cool, but like really, like they're going to it's going to like really be the foundation. And then if you like put these two together, right, you figure out like, holy crap, maybe there is some like plan, right, to actually empower us as humans to fight the invisible enemy, right, to fight inflation, to fight central bankers, and that there are some good guys in the middle. A lot of Bitcoiners have this, like I kind of call it a domesticated take, where everybody in the military is bad, everybody's everybody's horrible, they're dooming and glooming, and they don't really have a lot of hope, I think, in some sense of it. And so I kind of see this as like, wow, like this total like information campaign to like, you know, awaken people about the evils of this world, about the child trafficking, about, you know, all that nasty stuff of our institutions. And then you pair it with a new monetary system that is decentralized and not owned by any third party. You're just kind of like, well, if you put these together, it kind of makes sense that maybe there is some kind of greater plan that is being implemented that we don't quite really understand all of it, but we're being forced down this path anyway. And so I bring kind of this interesting lens to, I think, the Bitcoin space about, you know, what I think is happening, because, you know, once I started to go full Bitcoin back in like, you know, 2017, 2018, it became my passion. Like I couldn't like sleep at night without like figuring stuff out. I had tons of homework, tons of research. And then I started like a channel, started consulting, and I started teaching people about it. And then, you know, we've got a rug pull radio show that's been going for almost 2 years now. We've got a pretty big Telegram channel to where we kind of encompass both of these kind of genres and we put them together, and we call it Digital 1776, right? We call it a literal declaration of independence in cyberspace. So, you know, I think pairing those two together is just like this ultimate freedom tool for humanity. And, Once I think people figure that out, I think it's going to be something cool.
Yeah, as I'm hearing you speak, it's almost like when you demonetize your enemy, when you demonetize the people that are hurting you, as you go against them, you're like, man, where are they getting all this energy, all this funding? How do they just seem to show up with more people and more firepower? And what you may not realize is you're actually feeding your enemy's money when you deal in their currency, because they're devaluing your property. And I don't think people speak like you are, as far as let's stop funding our enemies, because that's what
that's an important point. There's a second point to that too, though, and that second point is taxation. So your tax dollars are going directly towards paying the salaries of pedophiles, right, that are in our institutional government. And so, this country was founded on a tax revolt. And just funny enough, Craig, we were given the perfect unconfiscatable, untaxable, decentralized information weapon that we can hold in our hands that they can't, I mean, they can imprison us, I guess, right? But they can't take it from us, right? And that's what flips the entire game on its head. And so, we've been taken advantage of. We've been exploited for so long. We've just kind of forgotten how to play the game. Like, we've forgotten that it's always power of the people, right? Mm-hmm. That giving their consent to government gives them that power. Like, they don't automatically hold power on us. Like, we give them consent to that power. And so if you keep thinking about it, you keep pulling on that thread, you realize that not only are they exploiting us through inflated monetary policy, but the tax dollars we pay are going to fund wars. They're going to fund institutional corruption. They're going to fund, medical terrorists like Anthony Fauci, right? That have put us into these control levers to where they're basically just sucking our energy dry, right? I think of us like, like batteries in the Matrix, right? They're literally just feeding off of our energy constantly through any means. And so if any other person has any control over your labor, like before it's produced, any taxes, you're a slave, even if it's 1%. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think it's too far-fetched to realize after 2020, after the COVID scamdemic, after shutting down small and medium-sized businesses, after forcing people to take the death jab, versus fear of losing their jobs, that like maybe there is a small group of people that are doing things that is, not probably in our best interest. And so I do believe there is some kind of shadow government type of insurgency behind the scenes, and that we as citizens, all right, of this world are the counterinsurgents to that plan. But it's a peaceful revolution, right? It's a revolution of consent. It's a revolution of storing your energy in something that is untaxable, unconfiscatable, and then using your consent to say, no, I am not going to file my tax return. I am not going to pay your tax. I'm going to opt out of every tax that you have that I can, right? That makes the most sense for my family, whatever that is, so that you can actually join this battle and actually fight them in a battle that matters. Like, you can scream all you want on Twitter, right? You're just like, you're throwing sticks at a steel door. You have to attack their energy source. Their energy source is the money printer. And every time you take Satoshis, right, off of Coinbase, off of River, off of Swan, wherever you're buying them, right, you are denying the enemy of that energy and making it harder for them to, their firepower of fiat currency becomes less and less effective over time, as we see what's happening, in Japan right now.
Right. And maybe speak a little bit on, because I think in addition to unconfiscatability is the permissionless nature, that you're not asking permission. And a lot of times we think that we're in business with our banks, but our banks are in business with people who they have to seek permission of. So you really are asking permission from many people, actually, anytime you touch fiat. And so how is Bitcoin different than that?
Yeah, look, it's a one-way system. It's a one-way protocol. We're seeing it overseas, to where our sanctions, right, against other countries, we're controlling the pocketbooks of other leaders, other countries, so they're not able to make decisions that is best for them, right? And we've heard of, civil asset forfeiture. If you get pulled over by a cop and you've got $100,000 in cash and you can't prove it's yours, right? They just take it, like they just confiscate it. which should be illegal as well. But they do this on a worldwide basis, right? Imagine if you go to a small poor country and you're like, hey, if you don't like attack this other country, we're just cutting you off a SWIFT system. Like we're shutting down and freezing your bank accounts. And really, if you can control the energy, right, the lifeblood of a country, you can make them do whatever you want. I think there was a rumor today about Iran saying, hey, we'll eliminate all the sanctions if you don't attack Israel, right? And so there's always this quid pro quo with the financial system to use as an advantage to take control of other countries. And let's be honest, we don't have the best track record in being, let's say, a honest broker when it comes to sanctions, right? We've done things to other countries, removed leaders, assassinated things to where we don't really have any business going over there with their culture, right? Like their culture is their culture. We should live and let live. Let them do what they want to do over there to some degree, and not try to police the entire world and control everything. And so now I think we're seeing that backlash, right? We're seeing that pendulum swing back to where the country's like, you know what? We've got this decentralized permissionless system like Russia, right? To where they're like, for international payments, you can use crypto. You don't have to use, the closed loop systems that the dollar and these other systems. And BRICS is now, almost 50% GDP of the entire world. And, the dollar is going to have a tough time going against half of the world GDP wise, nominally, when you've got India, Russia, China, Iran, Saudi Arabia. So I think Americans are a little bit arrogant in their understanding of that because we've been so cushy over here, right? It's been very comfortable for Americans because we live in the luxury of the dominant currency. And so, yeah, like permissionless is such a huge part of this, because if you can't control, right, you can't block a transaction, people are free to do what they and transact in whatever method they want. And you can claim terrorism like all you want on all these other things, but at the end of the day, it's becoming more and more apparent that our government is ran by these terrorists.
Yeah. It seems like, as much as I think the American government is sitting on this Bitcoin thing, I think the Americans themselves are so genetically disposed to just entrepreneurism and just exceptionalism that I see a massive brain trust on the Bitcoin community, at least coming from America. But I'm also seeing it across the planet. What's your sense on how is this affecting the rest of the world?
Yeah, look, I always kind of had this idea that, if this was to be a fair distribution of a huge transfer of wealth from the corrupt institutions back to the people, it would have to be in a way that was fair, right? It would have to be to where, like, really America couldn't be first to the party and like take all the Bitcoin. It would have to kind of be onboarded in a way to where countries that were suffering from inflation the worst, right, were actually onboarded first, right? Like the Venezuelas, like the El Salvadors, like these poor countries where we as Americans have basically enslaved these countries to the currency, right? A distribution of wealth across the planet, right, took place over 15 years before, the ETFs got approved, for instance, right? And so I think that's an important aspect of this. You've got the Turkeys and the Lebanons, and over there they have a lot of different conversations, right? They have conversations about, hey, half of our wealth evaporated overnight because they just devalued our currency. Like, how are we gonna eat tomorrow? Meanwhile in America we're fighting over, what color the flag should be and what football team is going to win. And it's a complete different mindset I think they have over there, and we're still kind of in that mindset. Maybe it's going to change sooner than later, depending on what happens here with our financial markets before the election, right? October's coming. But no, like I truly believe this was a gift from God, an IQ test, so to say, as Max Kaiser calls it, to where, the poor countries across the world, across the globe, were given first access to this technology because they needed it the most, right? They had to suffer through tyrants and major inflation, and they had to leave, right? They had to leave with nothing but like maybe a seed phrase in their head. And so for that reason alone, it became very more attractive for those folks to start using this technology first.
Yeah, and I also heard it called not just an IQ test, but an ego test, because if you think you know everything, you will be humbled by Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And I've been humbled time and time again. And that's true, right? Like we as Bitcoiners don't know everything. We have an idea, right? But I think the biggest idea right now that we have is the money is the problem, right? Yeah. The incentive structure of fiat, printing energy out of nothing, alchemism, is completely fraudulent and fundamentally puts, our species on a literally a death spiral to eliminating the entire planet, right? We're at full, nuclear alerts at these points with Russia and World War III, and so we've hit this nuclear stalemate to where if we do start launching nukes at each other, like we're at risk of like blowing up the entire planet. And so enter kind of Jason Laurie, right? Enter soft war. We were big on software day one. We're like, boom, yep, that guy absolutely has this correct. And now we've got RFK saying he's going to put him on his director of NSA, right, or NSA security team for Bitcoin, which was massive. But as soon as this guy's piece came out, like I was, and I was really kind of disheartened by the Bitcoiner community because they completely shut this man out. They didn't read the book, right? And they all like agreed with each other. It's like this clique of like Bitcoin influencers that like, oh, you can't, they all said it was fake. Like you have to agree with them. And no, we don't have to agree with everything they say. And a lot of them are domesticated, right? We've got a lot of them are pushing the vaccine. And so a lot of them are pushing all these, tyrannical things. And we're like, well, why are you in Bitcoin if you're doing these other things? And like, no, you've got it completely backwards. And then you've got a lot of freedom folks on the other side, right? The conservative crowd that understands freedom to a degree, but they don't understand the technology aspect of it. They don't understand energy. They don't understand Bitcoin. And so once these communities kind of merge together, the Bitcoiners start to become more undomesticated and learn about freedom and learn about 1776. Because what are they going to do, right? Kamala is probably going to pass some bill that's going to unrealized tax your crypto gains, right? And so imagine that, right? Bitcoin goes to 500K and these Bitcoiners go, oh, that's awesome. And then Kamala comes out, oh, by the way, we're going to tax your unrealized gains and you have to pay us because your gain was unrealized. And I think that's coming. Some of these Bitcoiners they're a little too pussified.
I agree. I agree. Jason Lowery, when I first saw his the first exposure I had was when Robert Breedlove interviewed him. And in that talk, it's the first time I've gotten like noticeably angry at content I was hearing when he said the highest form of predation is to breed your will to fight out of you. And he says, take a cow, for instance. You can shoot a cow next to another cow and the living cow just keeps chewing, like no will to fight. And I look at today's, I hate to say it, the men of the world, especially in America, and there's just no desire to push back. I'm like, you're not even going to give a token resistance.
Yeah, be like this happy rebel, right? You don't have to pick up arms and go shoot people, right? That's the last thing you should be doing. But now you have this weapon to where if you're mad at the way things are going, you can say, you know what? I'm going to store my something that is unfuckwithable, and then I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yes.
And so it's like this rebellious nature that, have to be bred back into men, have to be bred back into the soldiers of this world. And so like, look, my message isn't for everybody, and we don't need everybody. I'm looking for the lions, right? We need strong men to build this bridge of freedom. And the rest of the crypto bros, the rest of the domesticated Bitcoiners, they're going to be reporting all their gains to Kamala. They're going to be paying taxes to pedophiles, and they're going to have fun, right? Staying in their chains, right? They're going to have fun staying enslaved to their proof of stake system, because really what we're fighting for in the end is proof of work. We're not fighting, these random characters. Like there's an abstract power hierarchy that is literally the American government, every government on the planet. And so how do you beat abstract, power structures? You beat it with real power, physical power. And so Bitcoin allows individuals to harness the entire power of the entire network, right? That Gabriel's horn type analogy, to where a single individual literally is empowered by the entire network to protect one's energy from any governments that want to try to attack the network, any military that wants to attack the network. They don't have that power anymore. And you're absolutely right. It is. How do we come back from this?
And I think when people think, push back. They think on offensive, but Bitcoin is a defensive weapon. It's there to defend your property. It's more like a wall than it is a spear. And when you think of people that can build a wall, the littlest guy can build a brick wall, the littlest nerd in the corner, right? You don't have to be this big, bulking, masculine warrior that's out like a Spartan stabbing people on the front line, which is, I think, people's understanding of fighting back. This is just, how about just put all your property behind a wall of encryption that 10 aircraft carriers couldn't overcome? And that's what we have at our disposal. And the shame of it is, and this is what kills me, is people just aren't willing to do the work. I can't tell you how many people that I'm orange pilling that will tell me, I just don't understand. I'm like, yeah, welcome to the club of not understanding. That should be part of your human existence. Let's do the work and try to understand.
Yeah, and I try to tell people, like, look, no one's coming to save you. You can't really vote your way out of tyranny, right?
That's right.
And so if you can't vote your way out of tyranny, like, you're going to have to use real power. You're going to have to stand up. And if this is truly a revolutionary, time period we're living in, the revolution has to begin with the people, right? It can't be from some, some big leader like Trump or something. Like, they can help instill freedom and they can help instill values, but he can't just come in on a dragon and just magically save everybody, right? That's not proof of work, right? And so instilling those values and helping people get to that level, now that he's become full-blown Bitcoin hash power, soft war maxi, but even Trump talking about mining every Bitcoin in America, talking about Bitcoin mining as a last defense against a central bank digital currency. He gave some clues even in the Nashville speech about, the energy that's coming down the road. And so I think people need to really take heed to this and not be afraid to stand up, not be afraid to stand with us fellow misfits in the Bitcoin community. And look, if Trump doesn't win the election, right, what are you going to do about it? Right? Are you going to report your unrealized crypto gains and pay Kamala? And whoever they decide to run, whoever they decide to elect in their abstract power hierarchy, doesn't really matter. And so a lot of my research actually goes into talking about these strategies because, funny enough, Craig, there was a U.S. government document put out there in 2009 called the Guide to Counterinsurgency. Okay, so this was a government guide called Counterinsurgency, and it was put out actually in January 2009. Right, the same month and year of the Genesis block. And so when you think about, like, what is a counterinsurgency, well, they abbreviated this thing COIN. Funny enough, it's called COIN. and if you think they actually defined COIN as a comprehensive civilian and military effort taken to simultaneously defeat and contain insurgency and address its root causes, right? And so root causes is interesting. Civilian military simultaneously, like a joint kind of civilian military alliance, is interesting. But you take bit, right? Bit is literally just, digital bits of information. And then you take coin is literally counterinsurgency. And so it's kind of mimetic where you've got this digital counterinsurgency, and it talks about a military civilian alliance. Like, maybe there was some plan that the military, right? SHA-256, every piece of Bitcoin is military U.S. technology, right? TCP/IP. You got DARPA. You've got GPS, right? You've got Tor browser created by the Navy. C++, right? It was an American guy. And so you've got all this weird American nuclear-proof technology. Then you've got kind of this counterinsurgency guide layered over the top of it. There was also documents put out by the CIA. And they talked about what insurgency was. And so insurgency, right, is, kind of a defined as like shadow government, right, to undermine the authority of the existing power structures. And so they defined insurgency literally as shadow government. And I think JFK talked a lot about, secret societies and how we should live in an open society, a transparent society. He, funny enough, right, he came up with Executive Order 11110. He was then assassinated a few months later, as Robert Kennedy points out. He was trying to take power away from the Federal Reserve. And so if you look at the struggle between an insurgency, right, which we have shadow government, and a counterinsurgency, okay, if you look at the defined military terms that they talk about, it's literally defined as a battle over legitimacy, okay? Like, who is legitimate? Is the insurgent shadow government legitimate? or who has the power in messaging and in legitimacy. And so if we think more about legitimacy, we get to consent. There's a direct line between legitimacy and consent, because if I don't consent, right, to your abstract power, I am delegitimizing you, right? I'm saying you're not in control. I am delegitimizing your power simply by saying I no longer consent. And I think this is really the crux of what we're dealing with right now, is too many people are consenting, right? Too many people took the jab. Too many people shut down their business. Too many people listen to these morons on TV talk about how safe and effective it was. And they're literally, out there pushing all these different types of propaganda, whether it's, the trans community and, the Olympics and the medical industry, the college, our education system. Literally every foundation of our institutions is corrupted. Yeah. And you can't just fix that by like electing a new leader. Like the swamp isn't going to drain itself. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Trump ain't going to come in there and fire, 5 million federal employees on day one. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, you should have Dr. Amada Moose. I had him about 2 hours ago on the show. This is Saifedeem's brother. He wrote a book called Fiat Food. And he talks about how all of our medical schools and all the research is funded by the pharmaceuticals and stuff. And so, he said cholesterol is good, should be around 300, 350, but we're told it should be around 190 and 150. And he said that, we're basically fighting fiat at every level, from our food supply, from our government. It's like, I think someone wrote a book. I probably have him on there, called Fiat Ruins Everything. I forget which author that was.
Jimmy Song, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the one. And it really is everywhere, that when you corrupt the money, when you corrupt the way we store energy, it corrupts everything, not just our politics and our economics, but even our food supply and our medicine.
Yeah, because then what they say, then they diagnose you with something. They give you a medicine to cure that. That's just makes it worse. And then they give you another medicine. So they're literally trying to kill you at every aspect they can, whether it's information, whether it's food, whether it's drugs. And so they're slowly trying to kill you to extract as much value as they can out of you while you're living, right? And that's why, we live in these controlled structures. But you're right. Like, how do you fight this though? And I'm one of these guys that likes to conserve my energy, right? Like, I do jujitsu. I do things to where, hey, if you're in a bad position, you need to conserve that energy so you can have a big outlash of power to, like, either sweep them or do something to where you can become more advantageous. And so, what is our clearest path to victory? Are we going to vote Trump in and trust, right, that he's just going to fire everybody? And how do you drain the swamp of Washington? How do you drain the bureaucratic state of parasites? Like, you can't just fire them all. But if you eliminate their free energy source of, right, central bank fiat currency, the swamp drains itself. Guess what? No longer does the government have the power to provide payment for all these people and all these different programs. Okay. Trump can walk in there one day and be like, hey, sorry, like, I don't know what happened. You guys messed up the money printer. And so now we can't really have anybody. That's why I think kind of the strategic stockpile talk is kind of like a rug pull. The strategic, like, Bitcoin reserve that, the Cynthia Loomis and stuff. But it's great, right? It's great for the awakening to help people understand Bitcoin and everything. But at the end of the day, like, we're trying to drain the swamp, not fill it back up, right? And so, like, if we're truly going to take down the Federal Reserve, we don't want the Federal Reserve owning 4 million Bitcoin. That's the last thing I want the Federal Reserve to do. And so it's funny because I think we're going to get to this point to where a lot of Bitcoiners are going to go out and vote, and they're going to be like, yes, Trump's going to save our bags. And and then they're going to get kind of maybe rug pulled, right? Maybe there's a smooth transition. Maybe Trump comes back, maybe doesn't. Mm-hmm. And then finally, maybe it's like, well, shit, I'm not paying unrealized capital gains. I haven't even, what if Bitcoin drops again? And so there's all these mental gymnastics people go through to preserve a proof of stake system. And that's what you're seeing, right? You're saying, like, well, we just vote this guy in, he's got good intentions, and, he's probably going to save us. And we have to use that trust thing again, where we have to trust another third party to protect our rights. And we don't need that anymore. We have a digital constitution, a declaration of independence in cyberspace, protected by, millions of these miners all across the world. The hash power is 3.5, 4x the size of the United States Navy across the globe. And so now an American citizen can take up the full digital arms, right, of like literally nuclear power, right? Imagine if you gave the citizen the access to like a nuclear aircraft carrier in cyberspace. And that's literally what a citizen has these days. They have access to the largest, most destructive weapon, defensive weapon, whatever you want to call it, in cyberspace that is on equal footing of governments. It's, I'd say, even more powerful because they don't have really any laws to help them gain access to this.
Yeah.
And so what we had was an arms race for 15 years, basically, an arms race of humanity coming into the network and then leaving, governments and institutions like the last 3.5%.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I love rug pulls. To me, they're the greatest teacher on earth, and my grit and my diamond hands are formed on the back of many rug pulls from shitcoins. And I don't think anybody should escape those lessons. So,
amen to that. We call it saving the world one rug pull at a time.
Yes, that's the way we educate. That's expedite our education.
Absolutely. Pain equals learning, right? Pain equals suffering equals learning. And so the quicker people embrace the pain, the suck, the quicker they will wake up to like, oh shit, that stove is hot. I probably shouldn't touch it again. Right.
I remember when I did jiu-jitsu not too long ago, you had mentioned something about that, how energy conservation is the name of the game, because I was one of the largest people in my jiu-jitsu gym, and these little guys would just wait me out. They knew I was they would hold on for maybe 120 seconds till I was gassed. And then they could just put a finger on me and roll me over.
Yep.
And that's when I had to learn that valuable lesson is the name of the game is whoever can spend the least amount of energy longest wins, because eventually you just get gassed and you're useless in a fight.
Yeah. And I think that's what's happening worldwide, right? We're strategically, we're conserving our energy. We're not trying to get out there and day trade our Bitcoin, right? We're not trying to time the highs and the lows and spend all this energy trying to like play these fiat games. We're just like, I know it's the best thing on the planet. I'm just going to hold it and I'll see what happens at the end, right? And like buy a little bit, right? If people that are new to this, buy just a little bit as insurance. But the greatest thing about this is you don't have to play the fiat game anymore. You can just buy it and hodl it, and over a couple of years, you're gonna come out positive on the fiat side. And then if you want to, sell it to go on vacation, do whatever you want, like do it, right? Like enjoy your life. I tell people all the time, like you have a scarce amount of time here. And so you should enjoy it how you want. And if your Bitcoin goes up, like use it, enjoy it, right? Like they've taken that away from you. They've taken away, your family vacations. They've taken so much away from you, family time. Like go use that energy that now was given back to you and spend it in the way you want to live your life. But hodl most of it, right? Don't spend all of it. Understand that this is the revolution. This is the foundation of the monetary system. This is the hill we die on, right? We're not going back to that other world. We're not going back to drinking Bud Lights and watching football on Sundays. We're going to fight this war. And so the Lions, like, come on over, bro. We want you on our side, right? We sound a little crazy. We get it. But we're going to die on this hill. Like we're literally saying, no, and we're metaphysically, right? We're not going to go shoot anybody. We're going to store our Bitcoin, right? Multi-sig wallets, different locations. And then we're going to literally say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to file my taxes, right? I'm not going to consent to your tyranny. Can you arrest all of us? Do you have the power to get every one of us? Do you? Right? I mean, if you go back and look at some of the studies, they found out that 100% revolutions are successful if they're peaceful, with only 3.51% of the population. So we don't need everybody. Right? Like the masses are just going to come over at some point. Like, oh, they weren't paying their taxes. Well, how do we know that they have the resources to even get all of us? And we already know that 80 million Americans aren't paying their taxes. And they're not only that, but if you go back in time and look at Ronald Reagan's executive order 12369, he actually proved through this executive order that not a single dime of your federal tax receipts go towards public service in the 80s. Like this has been since the 80s. And now we see the interest on the debt is more than our military budget, right? We see the debt going exponential. Like, do people really think they can pay off $35.1 trillion of debt?
Yeah.
It's just asinine at this point. And so we have to force them to negotiate with us. Stop trying to negotiate with them. We are literally our red line, like our offer is 0.0, right? If you want me to voluntarily submit my Satoshis to drop bombs on other countries, you're going to have to convince me why that's good for me and my family living 8,000 miles away, right? Why? And that's what it comes back to. It comes back to citizens being in control of their government. It talks about power back to the people to voluntarily contribute to things that are in their best interest, right? Whether it's a new road, a new school, whatever that case may be. And finally, we've been given technology that allows us to do that.
Now, as far as your radio station, what gave you the idea to do that, or just to start some type of media company? Or tell me about the journey behind that. And did you come from radio or anything like that? You just started?
No. Look, dude, I got tired of people not saying what I thought needed to be said. That was literally the only, because everybody has a Bitcoin podcast. Everybody has a different conspiratorial radio show. I'm like, hey, like, those are cool and all, but like, you guys are both missing like a major piece of this. And nobody, like the people in the Q community, right? They thought I was nuts. They were like, oh, it's a mark of the beast. It's devil currency. And then the Bitcoiners over here be like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, but this makes sense. This makes logical sense of like, hey, maybe these things are connected, and maybe we should start talking about how to fight the enemy, the invisible enemy, in a way that we win. Like I'm all about like winning this battle. Like I don't want to just sit around and think I'm helping, right? You get the little Simpsons, right? The guy with finger up his nose, I'm helping, right? Like literally that's the people that are just voting and they're saying I'm helping. You're not doing shit. And then you've got like the crazy guys that are like, let's take up arms and go. Like, what? You guys are idiots. And then you got these Bitcoiners that are pushing vaccines and and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to report all your Bitcoin gains and you're going to pay the federal government Satoshi so they can further enslave you? And so we need to come into the middle here, into this pincer movement of freedom, Bitcoin, unfuckwithable 1776. And this is where we get digital 1776 is we're going to have a revolution. We're already in the midst of it. Some people don't even know they're part of this revolution, right? And that's fine. We don't need to fly different flags or different banners. Like anybody can join this team if they resonate with this message of understanding power back to the people, understanding the ideals of freedom, understanding the ideals of private property, understanding the ideals of enslavement, right? And how anybody with access to your labor, right, any third party they're there to enslave you. That's the only name of the game. And that's why we have to go back to voluntary consent of our energy from the people.
Yeah. And I believe there are some leaders. Let me take El Salvador, Bukele. We've got Trump, we've got JFK, but the first thing they do when a William Wallace steps up, he gets to the front line and says, all right, guys, he rallies the troops. And the first thing they'll say is, I can't do this without you. And so even if we have a leader, he's not going to win the battle by himself. He's not some angelic creature that could just wipe out the enemy. He can motivate the people to stand up for themselves, but that's about it. If the people aren't behind even the best leader, we're just going to watch a great leader die is what's going to happen.
Yeah. And, I kind of think of the analogy of like, I think of the, the Game of Thrones analogies where, Khaleesi comes down and says, it's not my job to free you. Like you're free. You're a free person. So it's up to the individual to free themselves, right? They have to remove the shackles themselves. They can't like ask another person to do that for them. And that's why some of this conversation is difficult for people because they've been so enslaved, right? They're stuck in this loop of control that this is a foreign aspect to them, right? And so planting these ideas is the movement, right? And you don't have to agree with everything I'm saying, and I don't know everything, right? I'm telling you that it seems to me at this point in time, we're not going to be able to vote our way out of it, and we're not going to be able to fight our way kinetically out of it, right? There has to be some other solution that was gifted to us to fight these evils of the world, because our battle isn't against, these other people. They're incentivized by a corrupt structure that has automatically corrupted them. And so we can just work around them, right? We don't have to fight them head on. We just opt out. We're just like, I'm not going to participate in that anymore. And we're going to force you guys to the negotiating table, right? We're going to force you guys to be like, oh crap, man. A lot of people, like, our tax receipts are really down. How are we going to pay for, transgenders reading books about sex to children in school. Guess what? You can't pay for that anymore, right? That program's dead, bro. Right? You can't pay to drop bombs on kids in other countries that you can't even point to on a map. That program's dead. You can't pay for freaking COVID research in the Ukraine, right, to implement another pandemic on us. That program's gone too. And if we eliminate their energy source, it's like we can do whatever we want, right? We can build beautiful things. We've got the Michael Saylors of the world. We've got the Craig LeBlancs of the world. We've got all these geniuses out there that want to go build this new society built upon freedom. And literally, like, we just have to say, we opt out of their old system and create this new system. It's waiting there right for us. They built the nuts and bolts of it. We just have to harness it and use it.
Yeah, and that really is all it takes. And I don't even look at the current people that are using the fiat system as originally evil. These weren't evil babies when they were born. They were just as innocent as me and you. Yep. But like any ultimate power, it just corrupts you. And who among us, I mean, me and you would probably be just as evil as them if we had a printing press that could literally just print infinite wealth from us. I don't think I would be, immune to that level of power. And so really, I mean, even if we have some part of us cares for the people that are killing us, the best thing we should do is hate the illness, not the person, hate the sickness, not the person that's sick. And the printing press, it looks like corrupts every single government throughout time that touched it.
Yeah, and I believe some of these people's intentions are good, right? They probably think that, hey, if we put more money towards this program, we're going to defeat these things that are bad in society, right? And so what you get is this effect of thinking you're helping when in reality you're doing more harm than good. You just don't understand why. And then over time it gets worse and worse, and they have to keep doubling down. And that's why you see, I think, these radical movements in the Bitcoin prices, because you see people that are like, oh, well, it's a scam, and then, oh crap, it's back up again 100%. Like, what did I miss? And so every time you double down on trying to think that Bitcoin is dead or Bitcoin is some magical internet money that's going away, like the pain and the suffering of realizing that incentive structure becomes even stronger. And that's what is kind of altruistic about the people that teach about Bitcoin, right? We're trying to say, hey guys, out of our own flesh and blood and time and energy, we're trying to help you guys, right? We're trying to help you guys come onto the team of the winning team and get out of that loserville mentality. But no, I think you're absolutely correct. This, a lot of people have good intentions. I think they are just, they're just confused on how to do that.
Yeah. Well, the system is built on theft. So it's not like you can just touch a little bit of theft and not be a thief. It doesn't
really still a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Still a little. And once you allow yourself to steal a little, well, stealing a little more is not that much worse. And then eventually it's a slow decline to, before you know it, you're just pillaging the entire, population, which is where we're at today. And I think, like you said, when you propose some harmless thing that needs funding, it usually gets funding because you're pulling on people's heartstrings. But where does that end? You realize you stole to fund this good thing. So does that corrupt the good thing that now is funded from stolen money? And
well, not only that, but like you're not really even paying for it. Like you don't see it directly out of your paycheck. Like if they had a direct tax on everything that they did, I guarantee you it'd be a lot different. But they do it in a sleight of hand method of just printing more money. So it's not really like coming out of your pocket immediately, right?
It's not even our money. It's really the money of it's the money of the exported dollars that is producing a larger and larger portion of what America benefits. So we benefit when some little guy on the other side of the planet that's not an American citizen, his value gets devalued and we get the benefits. He doesn't even get the vote in our elections. Not that voting means anything.
Right.
But still. Oh, and by the way, I want to tell you, I was a Ron Paul delegate in Louisiana.
No way. Were you really?
2020.
Oh, man,
I saw a dark side of the Republican Party.
I remember that. I remember how they robbed him of a lot of seats.
Yeah, well, Romney, we had 170 of 190 delegates. We go to Shreveport, Louisiana. They changed the location the day before. Shreveport's the farthest northern city. They told us on Wednesday, if you're not here by Thursday, we're going to replace you. By some miracle, every Ron Paul delegate just dropped what they were doing, drove straight to Shreveport. We all showed up. And then eventually they just threw our guy on the ground, put him in handcuffs. We elected 2 more people right there on the floor. And they just said, it doesn't matter how many of y'all won. Romney's our presidential. Louisiana nominates him. It was the biggest clown show I had ever seen.
I mean, it's proof of stake. You experienced firsthand proof of stake, just encoding more logic and exploiting everything they could to just override the will of the people. And that's happening on a global scale, right? And so think about the transition from a proof of stake society to a proof of work society, to where these small group of people don't get to control what the larger group of people do, and that we can, in our own world, in our own lives, have full control of what we want to do and how we want to spend that time and energy. And what a great example of that complete corruption of the Republican rhino. And, and Trump's different, right? Trump's a different animal. He didn't come from politics, right? Trump didn't have to do any of this. Like, he was a billionaire. He had fame, he had fortune. Like, the guy didn't have to enter politics at all. Trust me. He was probably a lot happier. Put his family in danger, right? He was just almost assassinated, put himself in danger. And he's this agent of chaos to cause this awakening, which this world, needed badly. But again, he can't be that savior. He's the wake-up call, right? You as the individual have to decide how you're going to get to that next level of becoming a free sovereign citizen. And if you have to move to another country, you have to move to another country temporarily or whatever it takes, because this transition isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. Some of us may, end up getting things, you never know what's going to happen. But
I could tell you this: I'm not leaving this country. They're going to take it from me.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly.
We're not giving up Louisiana. Y'all can move to another nation. If
I mean, look, I live in California, and I'm giving up. I'm not giving up, being where I'm at either, and so it's just a whole, different mindset of standing firm, standing your ground, and then just undomesticating yourself, becoming that rebel, that digital rebel in cyberspace, to protect your energy as a human and protect natural law, protect your natural right as a human of your energy source, right? And that's what you need to do is learn to harness that energy and protect it.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about this radio channel journey, and then where can we hear more of it? Where can we hear more of your content? I mean, I know you're here on X, but I want to hear more.
We're on Rumble every Thursday night, Rug Pull Radio. So we're only on Rumble now. We've got it on some of the podcasts. You can see it on Spotify and stuff after a couple of days if you want to download them and stuff. But yeah, we're on Rug Pull Radio, Rumble. We're on the Badlands Media, part of that. And really, we talk about the different connections between the Q drops. We talk about the different things happening in the markets. We interview people. We've interviewed, Fred Thiel of Mara. We've interviewed the Robert Breedloves. We'll have to have you on too, Craig, sometime and interview you and see, what your take is on a lot of these things. We just try to follow, some of the dots in the transition from humanity moving from proof of stake to proof of work. And we try to inspire people to fight on the digital battleground, people to become those digital soldiers in cyberspace to protect their energy and opt out of the current, fiat corruption.
Yeah. Does StreamYard allow streaming to Rumble?
It does. Yep. You can stream to Rumble on StreamYard.
All right. Well, I'm signing up. I'll be signing up.
There you go. Yeah, Rumble's great. They were in Nashville. They've protected our freedom of speech for a long time now, because we talk about election fraud. We talk about the COVID vax. We can talk about pretty much any subject without being, censored or removed from the platform. And so, please join us on Rumble, man. We'd love to have you over there.
Yeah. So right now I'm setting up the content. I'm setting up my pace, figuring out the tech. But the key is just start, and maybe that's the best entrepreneurial advice or rebel advice is just start. You'll figure it out on the way. Don't think you're going to have it all worked out before you get moving.
Exactly. And I also wrote a piece called the Covfefe Dig. So I've been predicting Donald Trump as a Bitcoin maximalist for a long time, years ago, because of the research I've done that have connected Bitcoin to Q to Trump to, believe it or not, like Pepe the Frog over here, right? Pepe the Frog. So if you can believe it enough, some of these rare Pepes were minted on the Bitcoin blockchain back in 2016. And there's some interesting coincidences that coincide with Trump, coincide with Q, coincide obviously with Bitcoin. It's on the blockchain. You can see it, but they're NFTs, they're tokens. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners get very turned off when people talk about tokenization. But realizing that Bitcoin is just one of the layers in this new tech stack for humanity that we have to live within, because your vote is a token, your driver's license is a token, the deed to your house is a token. And so if your token is on a proof of stake network, like your token isn't worth anything, because your token is literally corruptible at any level they want to corrupt it at. Because guess what? They can implement more taxes on your house in the drop of a hat, right? They can implement any type, they can, forge your ID pretty easily. And so how are people going to battle not only AI and some other these things, but they need to cryptographically prove themselves in cyberspace. And so I believe tokenization is probably one of the most important things that Bitcoiners, need to learn about, because we have to take it that step further, right? A lot of people don't know that 90% of Wall Street trading happens in dark pools. Like literally the SEC, Gary Gensler talked about 90% of the trades that happen are done on the dark net. The GameStop shorts never close. And so if we can tokenize equities and put them on a transparent public ledger that are traded peer-to-peer, we don't need the JP Morgans anymore, right? We don't need the Charles Schwabs anymore, right? I can buy a Bitcoin bond in El Salvador and get paid in, whatever currency I want. And so we have to really kind of, I think, harness these energies to truly free ourselves from the abstract power hierarchy. And Wall Street is the capital markets are such an important piece of this entire picture that I think a lot of Bitcoiners are missing. And so, even Don Jr. talked about tokenizing, Trump real estate just the other day. You've got Larry Fink talking about tokenization of the stock market and starting something new in Texas. And so you've got ordinals, you've got inscriptions, you got all these other shit coins out there that I think are going on. But Counterparty Layer 2 was built back in 2014 on Bitcoin. And funny enough, the token, it is a shit coin, right? It's its own little token, but it had an immaculate conception compared to Bitcoin, to where literally burned Bitcoin created it. So like there was no ICO, there's no CEO. Anybody that burned Bitcoin, sent it to a provably unspendable Bitcoin address, was rewarded in this token that lets you do other things on the Bitcoin network. It all resides on op return, just like Lightning. And it's a beautiful little second layer that's really kind of, going gangbusters as far as development is going. And so I'm just throwing it out there, curiosity for people that are interested. I think tokenization is going to be massive. And it's not in the way that you're thinking, maybe of like, oh, a meme coin. Oh, it's Pepe the Frog. No, like we're talking about like literally tokenizing transparently things in the world that we currently use fiat tokens for, right? We're using fiat tokens for pieces of paper for the deed to our house. We're using pieces of paper for stock certificates, right? And what do they do with the stocks? They just print more stocks, sell more stocks. They debase the current equity holders, and then they just rug pull them there too. And so, it's happening at every level, the exploitation. And so people need to wake up to that fact, and we can change it by transparently putting that on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah. Here's my prediction on Trump. I think a lot of people are kind of against this, but I think I studied Trump before he ever got into politics from his real estate background. And he did a book with Robert Kiyosaki, Why We Want You to Be Rich, which I think you should read it because it's prior to him getting in. So you can maybe see what he was thinking before he ever ran for office. But I'm like, this guy has a financial background. He's been operating in a very corrupt New York, Manhattan real estate market. And I think the Bitcoiners judge a man too early before he's fully orange pilled. And if you look at Michael Saylor's early statements, Larry Fink's early statements, they were way off. But if you gave these very intelligent men, very financial, highly literate financial people time, give them time to be orange pilled. I've already seen in the last 4 or 5 communications from Trump, he's starting to understand it more in his language and in his speech. You saw how many times he used the word crypto at the national. Watch how that diminishes, is my prediction. Watch how he really starts to understand the use case of Bitcoin. But how many of us were orange pilled in a week or a month? It's taken years to get orange pilled, and I'm still learning.
He skipped some steps, right? He went from, Bitcoin seems like a scam to soft war, hash war, every Bitcoin mined in America. And so, look, I think it's Trump's understanding of Bitcoin goes back a lot further. I think even, creation of the Space Force was to actually bolster Bitcoin's prominence out in space. If you look at the hash graph, Bitcoin's basically flatlined until Trump comes into office, and then it literally moons. And so if you think about Trump's legacy, I always think of Trump's legacy as actually the hash power of the network because of Space Force, because of all these things he implemented. And so, look, and I don't think Trump could have talked about Bitcoin until then anyway, because Bitcoin was still being distributed across the globe. Bitcoin was still being onboarded to all these different countries in which he knew, right? And he talked about it a lot in his speech and inauguration about returning power back to the people. And, what's the ultimate form of that? Well, the ultimate form of power back to the people is within the currency. And so, my Gofefi dig ties all that together with JFK, with Pepe the Frog, with 11/11, Andrew Jackson. Okay, funny enough, right? Bitcoin National was in Andrew Jackson. Funny enough, the first portrait Trump put in the office 3 days into office was Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is known for defeating the second central bank of the United States, right? He was born on 3/15. There's all these different like synergistic numerology things that go along with some of this plan, which I believe. And so I'll send it to you to read and you might get a kick out of it. But I think Trump's going to take and cast a wide as a net as possible to get as many crypto bros on board, right? Knowing that they're going to come out and vote for him en masse, right? And then he can focus more on dialing in his message to Bitcoin only. But I think he's already kind of done that. He's saying it in ways that I think are just just casting the widest net possible to the crypto community, right? Firing Gary Gensler, all this other stuff, and then using that to bring him to his side, which I think he'll have no problem in, because the current administration is completely off their rocker when it comes to that.
Yeah. I will say one thing: if he loses, he has no power. So, or very limited power. You got to win the race if you're really going to have power afterwards.
Absolutely, 100%.
He's in it to win it. And then after he wins, we'll just have to see. I hope we don't have to live in a world where we're literally hiding from agents everywhere chasing us down.
No, I think the future's pretty comfy. I think the future's pretty bold. I think the future's pretty beautiful. But we got to stand up. We got to understand what we were in for if we didn't do that, right? Like we have to really experience that, because again, we're on a razor's edge, man. It could go either way. And so we have to fight to make sure that we are on the winning side of that coin.
Yeah, well, you definitely got that in me here. If there's anything I can do to help y'all out, get your message out, I'm fighting to the end. I will not be leaving this country under any circumstances. We will be holding New Orleans as long as possible.
Yeah, baby. Hell yeah. Let's go. No, I will send you, some of my stuff, and you can read it and share it if you'd like. But really, we just want people to join our team, right? We want people to join Digital 1776. You buy Bitcoin and secure it in your self-custodial wallet. You're on our team, man. You don't want to pay your taxes? You're on our team, man. You don't want to go there yet? No problem, right? You can incrementally go whatever pace is comfortable for you. But our call to action is to self-custody your Bitcoin and stop paying your federal income tax. Those two things together, consent and conservation of your energy and unfuckwithable technology, are key to winning this battle, because the end game is going to dictate that you're just going to pay unrealized gains to pedophiles if you don't, right? You are going to have to stand up at some point. Regardless of what you think is happening, you as a man have a moral responsibility, right, to defeat evil when you are in, when it's literally your choice, right? Like it's literally a choice you have to make. Right. Ideas are powerful. Ideas are bulletproof. And so it's really ours to win at this point. We just have to get enough people on board, which I think we already have, right? We already have the numbers. It's just that extra step of consent. And I think what's going to bring us to that extra step of consent is maybe an overwhelmingly, right, acknowledgement of a stolen election in 2024, right? How are you going to completely awaken the people and be like, hey, whoa, I don't care what, like people are they're just over it, right? They don't care anymore. They're just like, you know what? I'd rather live on my feet than die on my knees type of thing. Yeah. And that's who we're looking for. We're looking for the Will and Wallaces, baby. Let's go.
That's right. Well, you got one right here.
I love it.
GMoney, if you ever make it down to New Orleans, we will take a picture together in Jackson Square, and I can even buy you a drink in a bar.
Oh, dude, we're gonna meet up and paint the town orange, my friend. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a oh my gosh, I can't. It was where Jean Lafitte and Andrew Jackson struck the deal. There's a famous bar at the end that serves hurricanes. That place is still standing today, the original structure.
Interesting. Yeah, every time I go there, I try to visit a lot of the sites. I've been to some of the battlegrounds right there in New Orleans and stuff. And so no, I love all the history. I in Nashville, right? I got to see Hermitage. I've seen it before, type of thing. So I'm a big history guy, Civil War guy, all that stuff, and would love it. Absolutely. The energy in New Orleans is second to none.
That's right. That's right. Well, we'll be holding the city strong. We'll help lead the charge.
Do it. Love it.
Already talked to Don Bay. We're going to try to start a Bitcoin office here for the city. I figured
nice.
do it over in California. Certainly we can do it.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah. So where can we find you again? You said on Rumble or what's the...
yeah, I'm on Twitter as GMoney Pepe. So just GMoney Pepe, right? I'm the Bitcoin guy, not the Ethereum shitcoiner. I think there's a gmoney.eth or something, but GMoney Pepe. On Telegram, you can find us at Rug Pull Radio. Okay, we got a big community on Telegram. Telegram is where we really interact with everybody because it's such like a small community. We've got about 20,000 on there, about 2,000 in the chat. But we constantly hash out these ideas and strategies literally online in the chat and Telegram. And so if you're on Telegram, come join us, Rug Pull Radio, Thursday nights on Rumble, and then on Twitter, GMoney Pepe.
Yeah. Well, definitely look into it. And then I'd like to do this on the regular just to get an update.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole audience fired up.
Let's do it. Yeah, we got to have you on too. So let's schedule that too. We'll get you on the show and talk more about what you guys are doing.
Fantastic, man. Well, it was great talking to you. Let's do this again and have an awesome rest of the week.
All right, brother. Shade LA, man.
Take care.
See ya.
All right. So that was GMoney with man, he's doing some great work over there. And you can find him, as he said, on Rumble. I'm going to post some links to where you can find this guy, not just on Rumble and Telegram. I think he's got a great message. And, like he said, it's no one's, you cannot vote yourself out of this situation that you're in. You really have to get involved. And I would say the best way to get involved is to increase your operational security. And what do I mean by that? Increasing your operational security means you know how to protect yourself. You know how to buy Bitcoin. You know how to sell Bitcoin. You know how to trade in Bitcoin. You know how to, here's a key one. You know how to take your Bitcoin into self-custody. Okay. Because if you leave it on exchange, it's just an IOU. That means somebody else is holding it for you. So why would you go buy some rare coins at a pawn shop and then just say, here, I'll give you the money. You just hang on to them for me. And so you're hoping that pawn shop never gets robbed. Maybe the pawn shop is honest. Maybe Jack Mallers is a great guy, and maybe the people at Coinbase are great people. But, when the U.S. military rolls in to take all your Bitcoin, what are you going to do? And so that's why it's important for you to take your own Bitcoin into self-custody. There's all kind of great wallets out there. I recommend a guy. He's on YouTube. His name is Ben BTC Sessions. He has a lot of good instructional videos. I've had him on the show a couple times. So he'll recommend some really good soft wallets and hardware wallets. The soft wallets, I think the good ones are, oh gosh, don't hold me to this. Blue Wallet, I know, is a good one. Oh shoot, there's 3 or 4 of them that are good. I'll find them out and maybe announce them at the end of our next show. That way I can kind of prepare y'all. But then the hardware wallets, obviously the go-to one I've heard a lot about is Cold Card. I use Trezor, but there's plenty of goes. The point is, please take your Bitcoin off exchange. Take custody of the best property you can get your hands on, and that way you have to give permission to someone to seize all of your energy. But right now, if you hold it on exchange, or if you hold it in dollars, God forbid, then you're really part of the problem that's hurting you. And so the best thing you can do is get all the toxicity out of your system, right? If there's a toxic asset on the books, get it off the books. And so what I would recommend again is BTC Sessions for how a lot of those wallets work. And then of course you can hear great content from GMoney as well on Rumble. I'll be trying to produce content for you guys every day, interviewing guys like GMoney, like Ahmad Dr. Amada Moose, man, what a great interview that was on the last one. A lot of really good guys on today's show. Thank you all so much for allowing me to interview y'all. And for all the audience members out there, so this is LTP TV, low time preference. And this is kind of a Bitcoin mantra, is that we're worried more about long-term thinking. And there's a lot of people producing great content around thinking long-term. The fiat system pushes you to really think with very short-term thinking. Like, you've got to get rid of this money because it's losing its purchasing power. And what that does is allows you to make hasty decisions, and you buy cheap things. And so if you think about how food is corrupted when it's made cheap, how property is made cheap, even the money is cheap. It's like everything just becomes so cheap when you've got a cheap money backing it. But when you've got Bitcoin, now here's the question you have to ask yourself. What's more valuable than just hanging on to my Bitcoin? So you really think deeply about, do I really want to get rid of my Bitcoin to buy this thing that I want? And so what it does, it kind of forces you to only buy high quality things, to only do high quality things. And that's where we get, our low time preference. So if this is something that interests y'all, and you've got also somebody that you'd like me to interview for the show that you feel like they think this way as well, please reach out to me, give me their name. I'd love to bring them onto the channel, try to highlight what they were doing, and just encourage the rest of you guys to get out there and create something with a low time preference. That's going to take a long time. That might take 5 or 10 years to build. Start building something that takes 10 years to build. How about that? That's my challenge to everybody. Today, go build something that takes 10 years to build, and start today. And then just watch how the magic happens when you allow yourself to think long term. So again, I'm your host, Craig LeBlanc, founder of the LTP TV Low Time Preference, and I will see y'all again tomorrow. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Inflation is stealing your purchasing power, but what if there was a way to fight back? Enter Bitcoin, the digital currency that empowers you to take control of your wealth. Ever wondered why your money doesn't stretch as far as it used to? At the Daily Bitcoin Podcast, we educate, inform, and inspire. From expert interviews to breaking news, we bring you everything you need to stay ahead in the Bitcoin community. Market updates, expert insights, real-world use cases, and practical tips to navigate the Bitcoin economy. So whether you're a seasoned Bitcoin investor or just getting started, this is your daily dose of Bitcoin wisdom. Don't miss out. Subscribe now, hit that bell icon, and let's break free from the chains of inflation, one Bitcoin at a time. The Daily Bitcoin Podcast, your gateway to financial freedom.